my name is Jenna Tulin, and I will be examining some themes of nationalism that are present in the film 44 Messages from Catalina. So here are some important terms and themes that I will kind of be touching on as I'm talking about this. So the first thing that I wanted to examine was if Catalans were considered a non-core group. And if they were, then this would branch off into several different themes that I would be able to talk about that were present in the class. So I went ahead and used Milonis's definition of what a non-core group was. Non-core groups define any group that does not fit the inclusion of the core group. So after examining the film, there are several prominent text messages between Grandma Pepa and her daughter where she calls for a free Catalonia. This ties Milonis's argument where he says that non-core groups often want to maximize their well-being and avoid state repression, which is apparent in the film because individuals from Catalonia feel repressed by Spanish elites. They're fighting for freedom. They're fighting for rights. As the film progresses, we see that this definition only becomes more visible. The Spanish protesters are yelling things like, "This is our police force," and they're even calling Catalans scumbags. These insults are only helping to prove that the Spanish are considering Catalans as part of the non-core group. They're not included in the core. Now, this led into a theme of ethnic exclusion and exclusionary policies. Weimer notes that a high level of ethnic exclusion will increase the likelihood of a rebellion. Now, what were the signs of ethnic exclusion that were present within the film? First, we saw a big theme of voting rights issues, where there were quotes like, "I can't wait to vote, we finally get to vote," and there was a big fight for this vote of independence. Now, through that, we also saw that once Catalans won this sense of independence, there was control from the Spanish government. The Spanish government took control over civil services, over public goods, over finances, and this completely negates what Weimer tells us is important for building multi-ethnic coalitions. Weimer says that we want governments that are going to promote and provide public goods, and the Spanish government completely stripped Catalans of these. This proves that they were not trying to build a multi-ethnic coalition, but instead were trying to divide and separate and exclude the area. Now, furthermore, a quote that really resonated with me was, "If Catalonia wasn't a part of Spain, things would be different." This proves that there were prominent ethnic exclusionary policies in place, and Catalans felt that if they weren't a part of Spain, they would be treated differently, that they wouldn't be excluded, that they would finally feel like they had a place. This leads into a theme of underrepresentation in government. Now, this is something that Weimer talks about in an interview. He talks about the political integration aspect. This is the degree to which ruling coalitions are representative of the population at large. And we can see that in the film, as it progresses, it continues to get less representative of Catalans. Catalonia's jailed politicians is a major factor. The president runs from his own homeland. There's a call for fresh elections where Catalans are seen texting, not even knowing who to vote for. Do they vote for their politicians that are in jail? Do they vote for people that they don't even know stand for the same beliefs as them? And this brings up a prominent quote from the film where Grandma Pepa texts, "We're back to square one. We were underrepresented at the start. We finally fought for our independence and we're right back to where we were. We don't have a voice in the government." And this is a major theme that is touched on a lot in nationalism that we touched on in this course, that if groups feel that they aren't represented in government, this leads to ethnic exclusion, which then leads to rebellions. Now, I also wanted to examine something that we've talked about since the very beginning of this course, and this is a constitutive story. So what was Spain's constitutive story? Now, Phoebe Bui in her interview talks about the ethnic end versus the civic end. And in this case, I think that Spain is following more of an ethnic story. Their constitutive story is more ethnic based. They feel that only people who are Spanish born, who exemplify the ideas of being from Spain, fit into their ethnic constitutive story. This is seen in the film as we see that 90% of Catalans voted yes for independence. They want to break free from this. They want to form their own constitutive story. We see this in a prominent quote from the film where a young girl says, "Well, I feel Catalan and Spanish." This ties in ideas of identity that Darden has talked about, saying, how do we identify ourselves? Do we feel like we're this and that? Do we want to be a part of the ethnic constitutive story? But do we want to break free and form our own civic constitutive story? And this leads into an identity aspect. This is whether or not the population identifies with the nation and state. And in this case, Catalans did not fit the mold of Spain's constitutive story, and therefore they wanted to break free and start their own. Now, this led me to examine which of these themes actually led to the rebellion or the so-called revolution. And I found that actually all of them did. It was the fact that Catalans felt like a non-core group, that there were these ethnic exclusionary policies, this underrepresentation, that there was this ethnic constitutive story present, and identities were thrown around. People didn't know where they fit in. And this led me to think that this is an example of peripheral nationalism, which is the idea of resisting incorporation. These groups did not want to be a part of Spain. They wanted to break free. They wanted to resist this incorporation. And this ties in with one of Darden's major claims that he makes about the military, but I saw that it was very prominent in this case, that one of the most striking features of modern politics is the prevalence of people who are willing to kill, to die, to face personal hardship in order to support the people they identify as compatriots and in defense of a territory they call a homeland. This was a prominent theme I saw within the film. This is a prominent theme I see within nationalism, that these people from Catalan and these people from Spain were both willing to fight, to die, to kill, to support a territory that they called their own and an identity that they kept.